Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Weekly Huddle podcast. It is Christian, and I am here bringing you your Week 9 USFL Power Rankings. Only one more week after this. And it is the playoffs, and I will tell you it's going to be an interesting 2 weeks given the circumstances in, I guess, both divisions, really. In the North, it is a fight to not be last, as everyone in the North has a losing streak of some sort, some worse than others, but we will get into that later. And in the South, it is the exact opposite. We have 4 teams that are all in an arms race, trying their best to stick out among the rest. It's very interesting. 2 sides of the coin. We'll see how it ends up working out. But for now, let's go over Week 8. To start off, we're going to be looking at our number 8 ranked team, our worst team in the league right now. And for that, I'm going to have to give it to the Generals. And spoiler alert, before I get into it, the number 7 ranked team is going to be the Maulers with a identical record as the Generals. The Generals are on a 5-game losing streak currently compared to the Maulers' 3-game losing streak. Neither team have won a singular game at home, which is crazy. First, let's start off by going through some of the Generals' stats for their matchup against the Showboats. Prukup and Luletta were the quarterbacks of this game. Luletta only had 2 passes of 4 attempts for 16 yards. Prukup had 14 completions out of 25 for 128 yards, 2 touchdowns, and both quarterbacks had an interception. On the rushing side, Prukup had the most yards for 78 yards, and Victor had 9 rushes for 26 yards. On the receiving end, Victor was the number 1 receiver as well, with 6 receptions and 39 yards, tacking on a touchdown as well. Moore also ended up having a touchdown, 3 catches for 36 yards, long of 17. And that was pretty much it on that front. Or still doing his thing. 12 tackles, 7 solo, 2 tackles for loss. In total, the defense ended up having 10 tackles for loss, only 1 sack. They had 1 interception and 3 passes defended. 1 forced fumble and 1 fumble recovered. Kick return, nothing too insane, a long of 30 on the night and no punt returns. Skiba was 1 for 2 on field goals, 50%, a long of 56, 1 for 1 in extra points, and punting, Miller did pretty good, an average of 45.5 and a long of 48, one of which being pinned into the 20. Now, this Generals team is just not that great, sadly to say. They had a good start defensively, forcing the fumble. It didn't really last too long, as in, they fumbled right back, but we won't talk about that. I was excited because, Kyle Luletta, I remember, I don't remember many later round quarterbacks when they get drafted, but for whatever reason, Kyle Luletta is one of those guys that sticks out. So anytime I see Kyle Luletta, I'm like, yeah, that's my guy, Kyle Luletta, all right. But then he threw that pick, and then, Prukup had to come in, and then, I was excited for Prukup because he was doing a little bit of something, but he also threw a little pick. So Kyle Luletta was not alone in that front. They both threw an interception. The 56-yard field goal was nice. Unfortunate that the 50-yard field goal did not match up. That DJ Daniel pick was immaculate. That pick was great. Loved seeing the hawk, the going up, climbing the ladder, and grabbing that ball. That was excellent. Luani with the giant hit. That was fun. I wish Victor was active and had a bigger role earlier. Again, I think he should be having double-digit rushing attempts every single game. I don't know why his role would be... in the passing game, it was pretty large. He had 6 passes caught? 6 passes? Yep, 6 passes for 39 yards and the touchdown late in the game. So he was active in the receiving game, the most active, double the amount of active as anybody else. But, only 9 rushes. I don't like to see that. Only 26 yards, 2.9 yards per carry, or 2.9 average. Only a long of 9. I want to see more of Victor. Victor might be one of your most explosive, one of your most electric, one of your most fun players to watch on your team, and he's getting 9 attempts. So I don't agree with it at all. I really don't care what the matchup is. You could be facing the best team in the league. You could be facing the worst team in the league. You feed Victor, I think. Next up, as mentioned before, we have the Maulers at 7. The Maulers ended up facing the 5-3 now 5-3 Houston Gamblers. Lost 19-20, so a tight game. The Maulers, as far as their stats goes, Williams was 20 for 26 passing, 214 yards, no touchdowns, but no interceptions either. A QBR of 100.5. On the rushing side, London had 8 attempts for 41 yards. Williams himself had 7 attempts for 36 yards. Groshek, I believe that's how you say it, had 11 attempts for 22 yards. Williams also did have the rushing touchdown as well. Receiving the ball, Gaither had 6 catches for 70 yards, a long of 31. Henne had 4 catches for 66 yards. And that was pretty much all that there is to say about the receiving game. They passed the ball around a lot, which probably helped their odds in this game. Defensively, if we look at the stats, they had 0 sacks. They ended up having 5 tackles for loss. We had 0 interceptions, but 2 passes defended. Nothing super crazy on the special teams besides Blewett having 4 out of 5 field goals being made, 80%, a long of 54, and 1 for 1 in the extra point category. I do think pretty confidently, actually, that this team is better than their ranked number 8 counterpart. I have a lot more faith in this team to go out and win a game. I mean, this is a solid Gamblers team that they went out and were 1 point away from, well, I guess 2 points to win, but 2 points away from winning. Like, you know what I mean? So, Williams within the game looked pretty solid. You know, he didn't look too bad at all. This team needs to finish drives. I'd like less field goals and more touchdowns, but, you know, a lot of teams in this league throughout the course of the season have kind of struggled with that. So I guess this is just the lull that the Maulers are in. I'd like to see them punching it in and finishing these drives because they're putting together some decent drives, just not getting there all the way. The defense needs to play fourth quarters especially. They were doing pretty solid against this team. It almost looked like they were going to, you know, maybe beat them a little bit. But, you know, the defense was not playing 4 quarters. The team was not playing 4 quarters of football. Started off pretty solid, but then, you know, lost it throughout the game. Always love Henne. Always a fan of Henne. Big fan of Henne. Just like how I feel like every team has like one of those players that are at least my personal favorite to watch. With the last team, as I said, with the Generals, Victor is always my favorite player to watch with that team. And with the Maulers, it's probably Henne that is my favorite. So, love what he's doing. I'd love to get him more active, more yards. But what he did for the team and what the team did in general, I'm not mad at all. It was a hard-fought game. Unfortunately, it didn't work out the way that they wanted it to. And hopefully, as the weeks progress, there will be some more progress being made in terms of stacking some wins in the win category. Let's see. I believe next week they are facing the Pittsburgh Maulers, the Michigan Panthers. So this will be a good in-division. This will be a North v. North matchup. It's a team that they will need to leapfrog if they want to, you know, be in the playoffs. So this will be a good match for sure. I'm interested to see how they face up against the Panthers. And if they win, I was going to say something about the playoffs, but I don't. I'm going to retract that. I was about to be like, oh, well, who knows? Maybe, you know, they'll do some things in the playoffs. You know, we saw what happened in the XFL, but, you know, I don't think I'm ready to go that far yet. We'll take that 1 week at a time. Next up on our rankings, we're going to go with the 3-5 Michigan Panthers, as was just mentioned before. Looking at the stats, Love went 22 for 32, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. QBR of 96. Rushing, Corbin ended up having 11 attempts for 45 yards. Receiving, Walker and Bow. I need to look that up and figure out how to say that. I don't know why I don't know how to say it. But I think reading it, my brain just did not want to work. But those two and Quinn ended up being your top 3 receivers. On the defensive side of the ball, we have 2 sacks, 8 tackles for loss. We have 2 interceptions and 3 passes defended. So putting in some decent work on defense there. In terms of kicking goes, Murphy was 2 for 3, a long of 37 for field goals, and 2 for 2 in extra points, a total of 8 points. And punting, we had 5 punts, a 44-yard average. 1 was pinned inside the 20, 1 was a touchback, a long of 54. In terms of how this game went, they were facing a difficult opponent in the Breakers, although they started it off pretty decently. You had the fumble in the first quarter. That was followed by a couple punts and the missed field goal, unfortunately. The second quarter was pretty back and forth. It started off not back and forth at all, actually. It started off with the Breakers scoring 3 consecutive touchdowns. 21-0 ended up being the score. Michigan ended up coming back, 5 plays, 73-yard, a minute and 10 long drive to score a touchdown, and then that was followed by a Breakers interception. Michigan ended up capitalizing with the field goal. Some more back and forth from a punt, interception, touchdown, and a Breakers field goal in the third quarter. Fourth quarter, the score was 20-24 when Michigan ended up getting a field goal. The Breakers had a turnover on downs. Michigan could not capitalize. They had to punt. The Breakers couldn't further their lead. They had to punt. And then it was finally ended up with the interception from the Panthers, unfortunately. A tough battle, a tough opponent, but ultimately could not get it done. The Breakers got up early in the second quarter, and from there really just had to hold out, and hold out they did. Michigan made it a good fight toward down the stretch, as they were able to shorten that lead from a 21-point lead to a 4-point lead, so that is some kudos to them, but unfortunately it just was not enough to get it done. Again, as mentioned before, I think next week's matchup is going to be pretty important for them. It's a division matchup. It's going to help dictate how these playoffs are going to fall. So I'm excited to see how that ends up lining up. But for now, we're going to move on to our next team, which is the number 1 team in the North. Trend still stands where all the North teams are at the bottom and all the South teams end up being at the top. But next we have our Philadelphia Stars. The Philadelphia Stars ended up losing their most recent game to the Birmingham Stallions. It was a close game, 24-27. The Stars currently sit at the top of their division. They are 4-4, which is not a bad record by any means, considering the rest of their division, but isn't necessarily a great record given the entire other division. So they sit pretty comfortably in their division, right around middle of the pack. As far as the game goes, Cookus had 265 yards on 20 completions of 32 attempts, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Williams had 15 rushing attempts for 52 yards, not too much of a running game going on, an average of 3.5 yards per carry. Receiving end, Coleman had himself a pretty good day, 4 catches for 107 yards and a touchdown, a long of 55. Gray and Overton both did pretty solid, 4 catches for Gray for 74 yards and 5 catches for Overton with 50 yards. Williams also tacked on 4 catches for 23 yards and the touchdown. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, not too much sticking out on the stat sheet, with 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 0 interceptions, and 1 pass defended. Nothing too notable in the special teams department. Aguilar had 1 for 1 for field goals, 100%, obviously, as 1 for 1 entails. Long of 25, 3 for 3 on extra points. Total points were 6. And in the punting category, 3 out of 4 punts ended up being pinned inside the 20, and a long of 50. So a pretty solid day punting, I would say. The average doesn't tell the whole story, as the average is 35.5, but those 3 punts pinned inside the 20, give himself a day. That was pretty solid. This game was pretty back and forth for most of the game. The biggest lead that the Stars ended up having was at the beginning and at the end of the second quarter, when the Stars were up 14-7. Nothing too crazy was going on throughout the entire team. A fumble from the Stallions, and another fumble from the Stallions. Stallions having trouble with fumbles in this game, but the lights didn't really turn on for these two teams until the fourth quarter, when it was scoring back and forth, touchdowns, field goals, everything was happening. Score ended up jumping to 24-27 in favor of Birmingham until the final drive. The Stars had 28 seconds to make something happen, and the only thing that they were able to make happen, unfortunately, was an interception. So, The Stars did a pretty good job in this game. They stayed in it for basically the entire game. Unfortunately, they weren't able to hold strong. I liked their ability to force the turnovers. I was a fan of that. Unfortunately, again, just wasn't able to get it done at the very end. So I think going into next week, that's something that, finishing, maybe resulting in less punts throughout the game, maybe trying to get up earlier, turning some of those second quarter punts into field goals at the very least would probably be a goal that I would have for this team. But I think that they sit pretty comfortable at the top of their division. I know that they're not content. I know that they're going to be looking to get a win against the New Jersey Generals next week, and I have no doubt that they will win. That statement might come back to bite me, but I really have faith in this team. I think this team is going to end up with 5 wins after this week, and then potentially, depending on how they do, 6 wins, as the following week they'll be facing the Panthers. So, on paper, the Stars are looking to have a solid stretch coming down the end of the season into the playoffs. Whether or not they're going to capitalize on that and actually get their 2 wins to secure a 6-4 record on the season is yet to be seen. I have hope. I have faith. I don't know if it'll happen, but, we'll see. But that is enough about the North Division for now. Now we will move on to the South, and we will start off with our number 4 ranked team, and that is going to be the Houston Gamblers. The Gamblers are a team that is on a 1-week winning streak. When it comes to their stats against the Maulers, Bahar went 11 for 20, 146 yards and a touchdown. For rushing, Thompson had 14 attempts for 98 yards and 2 touchdowns, a long of 33. For receiving, Hall had 3 catches for 40 yards, Peterson had 1 catch for 40 yards, Chisholm had 2 catches for 36 yards, and a touchdown. On defense, 2 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 0 interceptions, but 1 pass defended. And then when it comes to special teams, on kicking, 2 for 3 for extra points, a total of 2 points, and 4 punts, 47.5 yard average, 3 of those punts getting pinned in the 20, a long of 56. And now we will get into some of the notes of the game. Now, there is some concern to be had with the fact that this team almost lost, literally a difference of a point, to one of the worst teams in the league, a team that is on a, 5 loss? 3 loss. This is 3 loss. A team that is on a 3-loss losing streak currently. A little bit of a concern, but one theme about this team within this match, I believe, is doing more with less. When you look at the matchup, you can see the time of possession, almost 20 minutes less time of possession between the Gamblers and the Maulers. Total drives, they had the same number of total drives, 8 and 8. Total plays, 43 for the Gamblers compared to 59 for the Maulers. Total yards, 266 for the Gamblers compared to 326 for the Maulers. Yards per play, 6.2 compared to 5.5. Red zone TDs were the same with 1, but red zone attempts were only 1 for the Gamblers, but 3 for the Maulers. Something that I want to see this Gamblers team do more is just have the ball more. Just possess the ball more, get more plays in, get more yards in. Try to get your stops on defense and try to just have as much time with the ball, as much time to allow your players to march down the field, allow your playmakers to do what they do best. Put your team in better positions is the moral of the story. I will say that their ability to, despite all of this, despite half the time and half the production on the, same amount of drives, they were able to get this victory. I think that is worth noting. But I will say part of that is just to do with, how they start. I think the mistakes and then the poor football to start the game didn't really put them in the best position, but they never lost it and they were able to push through and get the victory. And I think that is a formidable thing for them to do. I'm curious to see how this team moves forward. They are on their 1-win winning streak thus far. Next week, if we take a look really quickly, we see that they are going to end up facing the Stallions, so they have a very tough matchup ahead. The Stallions, who are currently sitting pretty at 6-2. This is going to be a big game, a big division game. especially for a division that is so close. Everyone has the same record, basically. So every single game matters. Every drive matters. Every play matters. And I don't think that you're going to be able to move past the Stallions team on half the time and half the production. You simply can't. This is not a team where that's going to work. So hopefully that's something that they'll be able to adjust moving forward. Now the next two teams are always difficult because they are the same record. One team is an absolute powerhouse, and one has made a crazy rise, similar to the Gamblers, from nothing to very much something. But in this case, I think I'm going to end up putting the Breakers at ranking number 3 and the Showboats at ranking number 2. Part of that is due to the fact that the Showboats have won their last 5 games. Ever since they won their first, they just simply do not know how to lose. They have been on an absolute run. It's hard to look past the fact that the Breakers have like every single stat leader offensively, pretty much. I don't know if that necessarily is the case, but it's pretty insane. Their offense is an absolute powerhouse. Nobody can dispute that. But as of right now, I do think that the Showboats, with how hot they are and the fact that the Showboats have beaten the Breakers in the past, I will be putting the Showboats above the Breakers for now, but that could very well change, as when Week 9 comes up, Saturday, June 10th, to be specific, we will have our Breakers versus Showboats showdown, and this will forever cement who will be the better team. Will it be the Breakers or will it be the Showboats? Of course, once playoffs kicks up and all that jazz, then, maybe we might have some different opinions and some different, rankings, but all in all, right now, it's these next 2 division games with the Showboats and Breakers facing off, and then Showboats facing the Breakers facing the Gamblers, and Showboats facing the Stallions. Everything about this division is up in the air right now. There is no telling who necessarily is going to take home what. The thing I feel most confident about, however, is our number 1 ranked team, the Birmingham Stallions. I do feel very confident in them coming through and getting the wins that they need to get. I do think that the Stallions are in the best place in the league in terms of their team and what they're able to do and what they've been doing. They are currently on a 3-game winning streak. They have the best points for versus points against differential. Both of their losses have come at home, so they are 3-0 when it comes to away games, although everyone in this division is 2-2 in division games. So everyone has split so far in the division. We'll see how that changes. I don't see that staying the same come these next 2 weeks, but we will see. This league and this division is going to get shaken up a lot, and I am loving it. I am 100% here for it. If I had to make an early prediction of where I think this division is going to end up, I think that we will have a Breakers victory over the Showboats come Week 9, and I think that we will have a Stallions victory over the Gamblers. And then I think that in Week 10, we are going to have a Stallions victory over the Showboats, or I think that one could be a little toss-up. I wouldn't be too shocked if the Showboats came through and put a little shocker on the Stallions in Week 10. Or, if the Stallions are sitting in a good place, maybe they, rest a couple starters, whatever the case may be, right? And then I think that the Breakers end up beating the Gamblers. I'm high on the Breakers. I want to see this high-powered offense succeed and do well, but right now I can't in good conscience put them over the Showboats or the Stallions. Those are my predictions. That's what I think is going to happen, and that's where I think everyone sits at the end of Week 8 and going into Week 9. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree. Let me know if there's you have any predictions as far as where this league is going, and if you have any early championship winners. I will say maybe it's a little basic to go with the Stallions, but I think they are currently having the best chance of winning the championship, but who knows? Maybe they'll get, eliminated right off the bat. Only time will tell, but we shall see. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you next week.